Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. I'm still messing with my posture in this because I have not done the new video mount yet. I'll eventually get there. All right, so there's a bed in the back, you can tell. All right, we're going to talk about minivans for a moment. I'm not going to talk about all of the options, but there's three big available options right now, and they are the Dodge Grand Caravan, which is the Chrysler Town and Country, which is almost exactly the same thing as the Pacifica, Chrysler Pacifica. And those are actually two different vans, even though they're all the same van, kind of. The Toyota, I think it's called Sienna, Toyota minivan, and the Honda, which I believe is the Odyssey. So Sienna, Odyssey. Those are the big three. There's some others out there. There's some stuff out there that you can camp in that's available. I'm not talking about the Ford Transit right now because it's not really a minivan. The Transit Connect kind of is a minivan, but it kind of feels like it's a different thing. I'll give it a fair mention though. But I want to talk about classic suburban mom minivans because they're awesome, right? And this applies to campers and full-timers. You can full-time in a minivan. You can also part-time camp or be a multimodal nomad in a minivan. What that means is that you'll have more than one setup. So, for example, in the Dodge, notably, there's a tow package. It's a towing-capable minivan. It's designed to be able to tow. So if you have a small trailer or a pop-up trailer, some lightweight thing, and you happen to like to park that somewhere for 3 or 4 months at a time because you're seasonal, retired, whatever, that's actually a really good option. And then you can use the minivan for road trips. If you live on a boat and in the van, of course, that's what I'm doing, and that's perfectly acceptable, 50-50 kind of thing. Interestingly enough, when you're at anchor, all the stuff in your boat is in your boat. Showering, sleeping, everything is handled on the boat. When you want to go do laundry and stuff, you have to take stuff off of the boat. And when you're at dock, usually, because showering at anchor isn't real showering for most of us on smaller boats, when you're at dock, you use the marina shower or laundry facilities, or you go to a gym or something. So all of the stuff surrounding that, your shower bag, your laundry soap, and all of that might live in your van. So it's kind of an interesting type of multimodalism where it's almost like you're living a different kind of life, different century when you're on the boat. Anyway, minivans. There is another minivan I'm going to mention in passing because it's very popular, very, very wonderful thing. It's a little more boxy, but still gets decent mileage, and that's the old Chevy Astro or GMC Savannah, which looks like a van, but is a minivan. There's also the Kia Sedona, which I don't really highly recommend. I have my own reasons. It's just a very difficult vehicle to work on since it takes a couple of hours to get to the rear spark plug bank. It's a 6-cylinder. You'll find them sitting at $200,000 with the original spark plugs in the rear and having gone through 3 or 4 sets in the front, and that's just not it's a bad thing. It's like the old Rangers where you had to take apart part of the engine to get to spark plug number 1, and people would replace 3 spark plugs, but not cylinder number 1. So it's a bad thing. I just don't like them. So the Honda Odyssey, great. I feel like the interior is more full in the back. There's more stuff in there, so you have less living space. You can strip it out, take it out, and that's fine. But if you want to keep it as a family vehicle, it's a little bit more difficult to convert back and forth. Also, the Hondas tend to have transmission problems. Failing transmissions is kind of the big thing to worry about when you're looking at a lower budget Honda. The Toyotas are fantastic. They have a Toyota price tag. Generally speaking, you're going to pay almost double, or 1/3 to double for a Toyota what you would for a Dodge or Chrysler. And it's fine. They get pretty decent mileage. All the parts are reliable. Again, the interiors are okay. You can turn it into a camper pretty well. I think Dodge really still rules on this one, and I prefer the Dodges for a couple of reasons. Dodges usually get hit. Dodge, Chrysler, Dodge Grand Caravan, Chrysler Town and Country. I got to make a note about that. But those usually get hit, dinged on mileage. Okay, I can tell you from having owned a couple that the mileage in town is not all that great. They have a really sucky power curve for acceleration as far as that goes. They've got big engines and they go. Like, they're really good at that, but they're a little bit more like power hungry when you're going in stop and go traffic. On the highway, they do just fine. If I go between 60 and 70 miles an hour, depending on the road, and I'm on a coastal highway and I'm not going way up like Donner Pass grades and stuff, I'm getting 26 miles to the gallon, usually in a Dodge Grand Caravan or a Chrysler Town and Country with a 3.8 liter engine. 26 miles to the gallon highway if you're driving sanely and safely, and that's pretty much what I do. It can go down to 24 if I'm really heavily loaded. Of course, if you're towing, it's a little bit different, but I've usually gotten mid-20s in all cases from all of them, and that includes 99, 2003, 2008, 2010. There was a 98. All the ones that I've driven, some of them I've given to family members. Some of them I've just sold because life changes, or because at one point I sold one to get a road trek, which was a great vehicle, but they do pretty good. The Pacifica is going to be similar. I'm not as familiar with the Pacifica in terms of the interior. The Dodge and Chrysler Grand Caravan, because prior to 2002, I don't remember what year they actually canceled it, but prior to somewhere around 2002, there was a Caravan, which was not Grand, and that had a shorter wheelbase. You can still sleep in it, but it's just not as long. It's not as long a vehicle, not as big a vehicle, and you'll find those occasionally with a 4-cylinder engine and 30 miles to the gallon, so up to you, but they are a shorter vehicle. Grand Caravan, Chrysler Town and Country. Generally speaking, when you look at the later two generations, so post 96, I think, 96 and later, you'll have the ability to have pocket seats. So the seats fold down into the bottom of the van, so you don't have to remove the seats, the back 2 rows of seats, to do stuff with as a camper. It's really great. You can, of course, and have more storage space and have a trunk and everything, and that's all up to you. But they're really useful that way. You have a 4x8 interior. Once you've done that, it's plenty of space to build, put in a bed, a kitchen box, all the stuff. It's really useful that way. The mileage is not bad. The maintenance is not bad. They're everywhere, and they are so cheap. If you look around, you can get a good running one with no real major dice rolls for $3,000. Put $1,000 into it, not counting tires. You're always going to have to do tires eventually, but do the fluid changes, make sure the battery's good, make sure the cylinders are good, just make sure everything's good. Buy it, do all the fluid changes, all the maintenance, and then just drive it. Just drive nicely and just drive it. There's nothing in the back to worry about. You've got two wheels back there and brakes, but there's nothing behind your cockpit that is mechanical. So they're really nice to work on that way. The front access is pretty good. I prefer the 3.8. There's a 3.3 and a 4.0. The 4.0 is a wonderful engine for towing, a little less happy on gas mileage, but just get 3.8. They do tow just fine. And that's it. The Toyota is going to give you slightly better gas mileage, probably a little bit better longevity in terms of once you're over 200,000 miles, 280,000 miles, when you're looking at stuff that might go bad or maintenance issues. The build quality, I don't know, it's kind of the same. The Honda, to me, is the lesser of the three on the top brands. People who love them, and that's totally fine. I don't have anything major to say except that the transmissions seem to be a little less robust, and I don't like the interiors as much for trying to camp in. I've been in a half a dozen. I haven't actually owned one to strip out, but I've been in several, and they're a little tighter. Okay. That's it. That's the big three. The Sedona. So I did have a Kia Sedona, and the mechanicals are rough. They are not as good on gas mileage as a Grand Caravan, even. So, and that's considered the most inefficient, although they're fine. So the Sedona, I regularly, if I have to mix city and highway traffic in a Dodge, I will often drop down to somewhere between 19.5 and 23 miles to the gallon, depending on how the traffic is going and how I'm driving and situations. With the Sedona, it's more like 16 to 19. And I would assume that you count on 17. It's really the higher end of that range is really hard to get. They are trucks. They're actually imported by a different company. Like they're not the regular Kia. They're from Kia Light Truck Company, and they're just built different, and they are very hard to work on. But the space is great. The weight handling is great. Like they drive fine. They're totally fine if that's what you have. I just would not go search for one. Whatever's available in your area and budget. Ford Transits are not what I would consider a cheap soccer mom minivan. There are lots of things you can do to live in them, but in my opinion, you're going to pay 3 times for condition and quality. You're going to pay 3 times to 4 times what you would pay for a Dodge, Toyota, or Honda minivan. And that's pretty much just the way that goes. They are very expensive. They're very popular in van life because of what they are. They tend to have the open back area with no insulation or padding or anything, so you can build it out into a fancy mini cabin. Don't need to do that. All right. If you're camping part-time, then obviously the Transit doesn't do anything for you because they tend to not be passenger vehicles. If you're full-time living, that's a lot of premium, and you don't get standing headroom out of it. You don't get anything. At that point, I would go for a conversion van or a full-size Ford Transit just for the money. I don't see it. You save a little bit of gas on the road, and that's it. So my pick is always going to be the Dodge. I'm more familiar with them, Dodge Chrysler. And I've had several of them, and I like the later 2 generations much better. I think that they are distinctly different vehicles. I consider the Dodge Grand Caravan and the Chrysler Town & Country to be the same van, but I consider the 96 to 2007 to be a different vehicle from the 2008 to 2020. And that's just, they're different. There's a lot of significant differences in the windows in the back go down in the 2008 and later models. They're a little more square looking. There's some other differences, not all of the older generation will have stow and go seating. It was still an option. Some of them will have roll out seating where the seats are on wheels. You unlatch them and pull them out. Whether you're going full time or not is going to make the difference on what kind of seating you really want. I think the best hybrid solution if you're semi-social is to have it set up with a no-build and keep the second row of seats, the 2 seats in the middle, and then maybe replace those. Project that I'm going to try to work on, maybe replace those with the swiveling ones. Some stow and go Chrysler Town & Country models have second row seats that swivel in like captain's chairs, and that would actually be kind of useful in a camper, but not sure. I haven't actually tried them. It's a project I might work on. That's about it. That's all I got to say. I don't know if there's anything else to mention. Nope. Pretty good. $2,000 to $4,000 and you can be off doing it, whether it's camping, multi-mode nomad, or full-time. These are cheap and reliable. Shout out to the original camper minivan, which was my Ford Windstar, and that was great. But it's basically a Taurus with a minivan, and they're old. That's if you find one in good condition, I love them, but they're old. That's all I gotta say. Peace out.